Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the zoo. The minion with me this evening is Adam.
Hello.
Traveling exhibit, GabbyGeeWhiz.
Greetings, everybody.
And as it is once again a Friday, of course, the keeper for this evening is myself, Sanguine. How are all of you doing tonight?
Doing all right. Just try not to work myself to death, but it's not their usual song and dance.
That tends to be the preferable way of going about life, not working yourself to death, but sadly it is not always possible.
Yeah.
Especially when your work requires you to download half a dozen apps, so it's just like you're always getting notifications, like not to mention phone
Fantastic.
calls from staff. It's great. It's beautiful.
Mhm. Sounds like a dream, doesn't it?
hmm The American dream.
And Adam, how about yourself? How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing all right. Kind of a rainy day. But yeah, other than that, doing good.
Nice. And I'm doing fairly well, just getting some things ready for my dinner. I probably won't be making it during the stream. I'll give it until after stream to throw it all together. And there's a chance, I'll say a slim chance, that stream might get cut a little bit early today, just because my stomach's been a bit out of sorts for some reason. But I'll try to manage not to have to cut it short. Just wanted to give everyone a heads up in case. But, so, have you guys seen anything interesting, heard anything interesting that you're dying to talk about? Seen anything about the Canadian bill that has been put out saying that they'll have the ability to control what people post on the internet, even user-created content?
Damn, I didn't see that.
Yeah,
We don't hit.
I've
Do we
been
have
kind
a
of
Canuck?
unplugged.
Oh.
I've been kind of unplugged from the internet. I was hoping you all would provide that context, and I would be reacting to it.
So, yeah, the Canadian government has decided to put forward a bill that says that they have editorial right on everything put on the internet, effectively, including user-generated content. But you can trust them. They won't abuse this. This is actually their argument for it. They won't use it. Yeah, it's in the bill, but shh. Don't worry about it. Which, every time I see something like that, and every time I hear well, you can trust us, okay, remove it from your bill. Then I can trust you. As long as it's in there, you're gonna use it, though. Don't bullshit me.
It's
I mean,
funny how that works, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You can trust us. There's fine print that's saying that you might have questions about, but I mean, trust us.
Yep.
I mean, after what happened with the truckers, if anybody isn't second guessing their motives, I don't know what to say. I mean, that's where I'm having issues with at this point. It's you run across people who may have some suspicions as to the motives, but then you get to the people who are just way full on whatever, like, oh yeah, no, that sounds like a great idea, and you're never gonna be able to have a discussion with like a genuine discussion with this person. Like, this is just if you hear this and you're like, yeah, that sounds reasonable, it's like, where? And again, like I said, dude, look at the truckers. Look what they did with the banking accounts. Do you think that they're not going to sit there and again, they just, even before this with the firearms. So it's God be with the Canuckastanis over there,
They just recently came
When you
out and
brought up the
said that.
truckers, that was a very fair point. Yeah, God forbid you fucking honk.
Well, yeah, well, hold on. Good point. Not a good point. It's It happened very recently. This should not be out of the memory set of people,
Yep.
and that's what they hope. That's what they hope for, is that things like that are just removed because some other big incident happened, and that's where they try and fucking
That's where
get
it's
you
the
at.
people. That's where it's are the people's job to remind them, like, no, we do not have goldfish brain. Like, we can have 3 or even 4 or 5 thoughts in our head at the same time. So
Mhm.
don't write us off, bro.
Yeah, and it's infuriating because, as Adam brought up, there's the gun issue going on in Canada, which Trudeau came out and said that Canadians know that they can get a gun for hunting and sport shooting, but you can't get a gun for self defense. Canadians know that you aren't allowed to use violence for self defense.
What if you use that same hunting rifle for a self defense case?
Oh, you'd get arrested.
That's
It's kind of like
no.
you guys have heard about the New York bodega incident, right?
Oh my god! Do not even get me started.
I think it's pronounced
The fact-
Bagada.
According to Jill Biden, yes, that is the pronunciation. But I'm not
he was
retarded.
even charged and had to post bail
Yep.
was utterly ridiculous.
So, in case anyone in chat somehow missed this story, there's a 70 something, was it 60 or 70 something year
The
old?
69-year-old lady.
69? Okay.
Roundabouts.
So, in that almost septuagenarian or just into septuagenarian range,
An immigrant, mind you. Wasn't he an immigrant?
Yep. I believe he was a first gen immigrant, bodega worker, not an owner, but a bodega worker. And he had one customer come in, try to buy a bag of chips. Her EBT card was declined.
And she summoned her boyfriend who had multiple felony charges of, guess what? Assault.
Yep, he said, no, you may not walk out with the bag of chips that you did not purchase. Those stay here. You can go and have a good day. She walked out. She got her boyfriend riled up. She went back in and she had a knife.
She was the one who cut his arm, and she wasn't even charged. Meanwhile, this guy's initial bail was how much again?
The bodega worker was stabbed. Yes.
But he was. There was a second person involved. I thought it was just the one guy.
So it was the one guy, his girlfriend, and then the bodega worker. The bodega worker was stabbed by the girlfriend and then assaulted by the boyfriend. He started to back him up into the corner, started smacking him around while forcing him into the chair. At one point, the bodega worker is able to get up and starts trying to get away. You can see in the footage from it that the brute ends up grabbing him by his shirt, has a good fistful, so there's no way that the guy will be able to actually make good on his attempted escape. He ends up looking down, sees that there's a knife that they've used to cut open boxes at the bodega. And since he's getting slapped around, this guy isn't allowing him to escape. He's already been stabbed by this guy's girlfriend. He does what he believes is necessary and what I think any...
He has already been assaulted. There is no goodwill to be offered by the other side. It wasn't a collar grab. It was like a slap. It was a stab.
Yep. He was stabbed, he was assaulted, he was grabbed, or actually battered rather than just assaulted, because it's assault and battery. Assault being the threat, battery being the actual smacking around. So he got smacked around. He tried to get away. He was restrained, so he was not able to get away. And the guy is continuing to attack him. He sees this knife. He does what I think any sane individual would end up doing.
Even the mayor of New York came out and said he should not have been charged.
Yep. But he does what any sane individual, in my opinion, would do. And he goes, well, there's a fair chance I'm going to end up dying because I'm getting assaulted as a near or just into septuagenarian, and we have brittle bones. This is my Hail Mary. I might end up dying anyways, but I might be able to get out. So he picked up the knife and stabbed the man. The man ended up dying. So the assailant in this instance, the guy who backed the bodega worker into the corner, started smacking him around after his girlfriend stabbed him, and then continued to prevent the man from being able to get away. As Adam stated just a couple seconds ago, had been charged several times. And as Gabby pointed out, I believe it was you, Gabby, that it was assault charges several times, including assault with deadly weapon charges and assault of police officer charges. So, apparently, if you attack police officers, if you attack bodega workers, if you attack various other sorts of people, you're released on no cash bail. Because, oh yeah, by the way, on all of his crimes, he was released on no cash bail. If you, on the other hand, are a innocent, hardworking bodega worker who is a near septuagenarian or a septuagenarian that starts getting smacked around by this guy who has like 1.5 feet on you, and you were stabbed,
a couple of decades on you, and not to mention just in any other instance, you're being assaulted.
Yep, has several decades younger than you. And you've been stabbed by his girlfriend at this point. If you defend yourself, well, now you're going to be held on $500,000 bail by the same DA that determined that this repeat offender for the same fucking
violent offender.
Yep.
It's not like he peddled like a dime bag. Like, it's not like a war on drugs, which is already garbage. That's a whole other conversation. This was a violent crime perpetuated by someone who had already been convicted and tried for multiple times of violent assaults.
Yep. Including assaults against police officers and various other individuals. So you're dealing with someone who is a repeat violent offender. But yeah, if you defend yourself against him, that repeat violent offender who was able to get out on no cash bail every time by this one DA, yeah, if you end up defending yourself against said violent offender.
The whole incident was caught on video. Like, there wasn't even like really a question. Like they like, I'm so mad. I'm just so mad because without even knowing his history or the bodega cashier's like history, you could look at the video and like be like, okay, so who came around and assaulted who first? What happened? Like, could you not charge the guy $500,000 worth of bail?
Yep. And then also, like I said, he's getting $500,000 bail. He is out on bail because his family was able to put up, I think it's 10%.
His GoFundMe got nuked, by the way, because GoFundMe, they quote unquote will not
Wait, they pulled it?
promote. Yeah.
Yeah.
GoFundMe is their blue
Okay.
belly
Okay,
They did
hold
a
on.
Rittenhouse.
bastards.
Hold on. This one, I think this incident once again is one more alarm clock for a lot of the fucking people who are just wandering around doing their own, oh, summertime, I'm gonna go to the lake and go to the beach. Look, do you see what in the fuck just happened? Like, this dude defended himself because a corrupt DA has been letting people out who are continuous criminals, and they're going around doing that. Guy wouldn't have assaulted the bodega guy for a bag of chips if he didn't think he was going to go get out of fucking jail again. Like, let's just be realistic
Well,
here.
let's
He
be
did it with
completely
impunity.
But
honest.
also,
There is a chance that
GoFundMe polling, just people
Well,
resourcing. Like he hadn't been convicted
hold on.
yet.
and to be completely honest,
Hold on,
he
wait. That's just a part of it, because again, it goes the bodega owner was just defending his shop or himself. And again, if you're assaulted,
he wasn't even an owner. He was just a worker.
Well,
It keeps on getting reported that he's an owner. He's just a worker.
even at that, he was being assaulted. I think
Yep.
he has the
Yeah,
right to
it doesn't
defend
matter,
himself,
yeah.
and I don't think he has to sit there and measure whether or not, oh my god, I used too much force. It's like, no, you don't know if this guy's willing to kill me for a bag of chips. So it's at this point, he but it goes back to
And
even what is it, last year, where there was a security guard who was shot at a pawn shop during
Yep.
the riots. And
The
that just gets
protest. I remember that, and no one on the left talks about it.
it just gets swept under the rug because people like it has no like, you see people are using these incidences for political and power gains, and it's like, at what point are you going to look at it and be like, yeah, dude, that's some bullshit. Like, that's this guy should not have even had to post bail. There's no reason why there should be a GoFundMe. And why is GoFundMe bringing that down? There's another fucking thing. What in the fuck reason would they have to say that this guy? I'm pretty sure they're going to say some like, oh,
I can tell you exactly the reason. They did the same reason for this as they did for the Rittenhouse poll, which was that they do not allow you to fund the bail of violent criminals.
But yet
They
they
say
still
this.
did. They
They
did
say
the
this
BLM
while
riot.
they have hundreds of completed campaigns for funding the bail of violent criminals, but they were violent criminals that were on the right side of things in their opinion.
and it's weird that you have to say it like that, because again, a few years ago when you say it like that, you'd be like, oh yeah, you're crazy. So, but at this point, it's like, dude, what else is it? Like, what the fuck else is it? I don't understand how many more of these incidences have to happen. How I don't want to get into it, but the Louisville or the school shooting out there in Texas, every more information that comes out of that is even more jarring in terms of like, yes, these people are evil and they're willing to do shit. And you know what, Adam Jones, as goofy as that is, at some point, like there's some truth to this, and it's scary. It is scary, but this, if we don't at least understand what we're going up against,
and
we're gonna fail.
There is something that I have to correct slightly. That
the
you said,
Uvalde situation was that was like police cowardice. They were detaining people who were trying to jump across the fence and like help their own family, instead of like they spent an hour and a half on their cell phones sanitizing their own hands at the.
There was one thing that I need to quickly chime in and correct that you said earlier, Adam, which is that if he thought that he was actually going to be arrested, he wouldn't have slapped around a bodega worker. No, that type of person absolutely would have. The thing that is true, though, is if he had actually been in prison or been in jail awaiting his charges for his numerous other assault charges, he would not have slapped around that bodega owner or worker, not owner, worker at that point, because he would have been in fucking jail. And that's part of the point of jail and prison. There's a certain percent of the population that It doesn't matter what the things that dissuade you from committing crime are, or how many barriers there are to commit crime. They will continue to commit fucking crimes. And the way that those people are handled, the only way that those people are handled, is you remove them from the general population. If they're in prison, they aren't victimizing the general population. If they're in jail, they aren't actively victimizing the general population. This is something that there's very few things as eye-opening when you're talking about crime as having worked in a maximum security prison. Because if you've never had to deal with offenders, if you've never had to deal with actual criminals, I can understand why you would be going, yeah, but there's nothing that would cause me to do this. So if they did that, they must have really had something messed up happen to them that forced them to do it. No,
I mean, that's
No,
kind of the curse. That's
there's
the curse of the well-meaning self-insert. It's
Yep.
like
Well-
you want to sympathize because that's what non-sociopaths do.
and you want
to understand their perspective, whether it's economics, whether it's upbringing, etc. Because that's what normal 98% of the population does. But also, I mean, not even 98%. I'm trying to think about where I want to go with this conversation. But
See,
like,
there's-
whether someone needs momentary help and like mental counseling to like whether correct their upbringing or whether they're actually a true sociopath is a whole other conversation.
see, there's
I don't
three.
know.
If someone is violent, that warrants a whole other regard and handling than other things. Like, do you know what I mean?
Well, I would like to know where the switch off came about, where people were, when they went to sleep, even if it was in a city or more importantly in the rural area, that they would lock the doors and then also carry protection around them, because there were people that would come in, and you never knew what would happen, to where the point where even like I know family members who, like, oh yeah, we would just sleep with the screen door open and everything was okay. And it's like, why would you feel that comfort? Like
So
that.
there's
That
a
depends
couple
on where you grow
things
up
that I
at.
want to. There's
Some
a couple.
places, they don't lock their doors.
And there's a couple things that I want to touch on real quick. So, first off, in my mind, there's three categories of people when it comes to morality. You have a certain group of the population that it does not matter how hellish of an existence they've been forced through. You could beat them like a dog every day of their life, and they will never do anything to harm another. They will be moral no matter how hellishly you treat them. There's the vast majority of people which, if you treat them well, they will be moral. If you treat them standard, they'll have some mix of moral and immoral. And if you treat them poorly, then they'll act immoral. And then there's the third category that a lot of people don't want to acknowledge, which are the people that it does not matter how blessed their life was, how kindly they were treated, how gently they were carried on through life. They will always be the sort that goes, oh, there's a stray kitten, and while everyone else is going, oh, isn't that stray kitten cute? They'll be going, where's that brick?
Oh yeah, well no, that's what I mean. Like there's for some reason people have forgotten, or they don't want to acknowledge that there's some pretty evil people out there. People have the capacity to be evil, and a lot of them willingly accept that action and that mentality. That's just out there. You can't get rid of that. You're never going to get rid of that. And pretending that it's not out there isn't going to help the fucking cause. Like
Yep.
that I think that is a major factor in a lot of the issues that we're having right now. Is that there's areas where it's like, dude, that's just evil, and
Yeah,
people are
and
still, oh well, are you sure? I mean, maybe it's not exactly what is. What the fuck are you talking about?
And
Like,
the
are you
thing
fucking
is,
At the
kidding me?
same time, true sociopathy is not as common as one would think, and even
It's
then,
not.
oh,
It's not.
sociopathy is not always violent. Like there's a lot of CEOs and like stuff who have like
oh yeah,
that kind
like I
of
was
mentality, but are not violent in that regard. They just
like
have a general disregard for human capacity, but they don't get like any kind of gratification.
I
Yeah,
said, the
they
From
vast
can be
majority
real
suffering.
of
jerk
people
offs,
are
but they're
the
not
vast
Jeffrey
majority of
Dahmers out there,
people
right?
are in that middle category that
They
I
do
mentioned.
exist. I'm not saying they don't. I'm just saying it's not
Yeah.
always the whole like sociopath thing is inherently violent.
Oh, and a good chunk of the people that I would consider just properly evil to their core aren't actually sociopathic. They just have a innate ability and inclination towards doing really fucked up things. And they'll come up with really beautiful ways of explaining why their fucked up thing is not actually really fucked up. And this is something that when you look at the worst people throughout history, the people that go, no, Hitler was obviously evil and he believed himself to be evil. Bullshit. Hitler didn't think he was evil. Hitler
He was
thought
evil,
he
but
was
he
goddamn
thought he was
savior.
doing good. Yeah, a lot of them do that.
He had a moral compass.
Yeah.
It's not
Stalin.
anything we would call fucking worthwhile, but he still believed himself to be on the right path.
Yeah. Stalin didn't think that he was doing evil things. Stalin thought that he was doing what needed to be done.
Stalin was crunching numbers. Oh,
Yeah.
oh.
Which
Sorry.
is what a lot of sociopaths do. They crunch numbers.
Stalin
Some are
effectively
violent,
thought
some are not.
Stalin effectively was thinking that he was doing goddamn triage on a society. And in triage, I've talked about this before. There's I normally refer to it as the fell math of triage, because it's something that fucks with a lot of people. Because when you do triage, you have to separate people into a bunch of different categories. So there's the people that fucking nothing's wrong with them, ignore them. There's the people that are in bad shape and they need to be seen to, but they don't need to be seen to right now. Then there's people that are in bad shape and they need to be seen now. And then there's a fourth category that is the one that really fucks with people. There are the people that are in such horrendous shape they needed to be seen 5 minutes ago. So, neither of you have worked medical care, right?
No.
Which group do you work on first? Again, they were the people that nothing's wrong with them. The people that are in a bad way, you need to work on them at some point. The people that are in a bad way, you need to work on them now. And then the people that are the most messed up and they needed someone working on them 5 minutes ago. Which group do you start with?
I say leave them to their own. You know, God will find his own.
So that is the coldest way, and that results in everyone except for the first group dying.
Well, maybe. We'll see. We'll see whose faith holds them out. I think that's the fourth crusade. A fourth crusade quote. Ha! History. We still got it, even in
See, I'm just thinking the Children's Crusade and how horrendously that one ended up.
Oh, that one was bad too.
But
but yes, obviously you go for the one that is in dire need of care.
So would you start with the group that needed someone to work on them 5 minutes ago, or would you start with a group that needs someone to work on them now?
I mean, assuming that we have space
Immediate,
open,
of
yeah.
course.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, go ahead, Gabby.
I mean, when it comes to the medical field, there's like urgent care for a fucking reason. Like, obviously, there are some circumstances where someone needs to be expedited in terms of being seen before
Yep.
anyone else.
Yeah,
So, yeah,
that's the entire point of triage. But again, you have those different categories that I mentioned. Which category do you start work on first?
can you remind me about the three terms you were talking about?
So there's the people that have nothing wrong with them. You have the people that have something wrong with them that need to be seen at some point. You have the people that have something drastically wrong with them and they need to be treated now. And you have the people that are so messed up they needed to be seen 5 minutes ago. Which
Well,
group do you
obviously
start with?
obviously people who needed to be seen 5 minutes ago.
No. You leave them until the second group, until the group of the people that need to be seen now are done. Anyone that survives in that group can then potentially be treated if none of the group that needs to be seen at some point have progressed to the point where they need
Well,
to be seen.
I'm also trusting that people who are, I'm trying to be optimistic. I'm also trusting people who are below me, like if I were to be in a position of authority in this regard, to like evaluate who needs to be seen first. I'm entrusting their professionalism.
This
Well,
is where
Tell
that's
me
what I'm talking
who
about. I'm
needs to be
talking
seen
about
first.
I'm talking about when you're the person doing triage. This is why triage fucks with people, because a lot of people, they go, the person that's the most messed up needs to be seen right away. And that sounds good. That sounds like it should be the right answer. The fucked up thing is that that answer will quite often cause more people to die.
Yeah, it's a contextual thing. But
So
dude,
what?
that's the
Okay.
reason why I said
That's why there's
you
multiple
let
different
God
categories
sort
in
of
a
God knows his
hospital.
own.
Yep, that's why there's different categories in the hospital. But even a hospital has limited resources at any given time. So
Yeah.
you have to decide where your resources are getting spent. And what you do is you start with a group that your resources will have the greatest impact with the lowest cost. So the greatest impact will be the people that they're really messed up and they need to be seen now, because you can get them back up and you can get them stable. The people that needed to be seen 5 minutes ago, you can probably get them stable as well. But you'll just be pouring resources into them. Pouring resources, pouring time, and taking up the attention of doctors. So you'll have a lot of people having to work on that patient for a lot of time using a lot of resources. And while you're doing that, other patients will be dying. Or you have the patient that you can handle fairly quickly that will require resources. If you don't handle them right away, they will die. But if you handle them right now, you can do it with the fewest number of resources, the shortest period of time, which gives you a higher chance of being able to save as many people as possible. So you start with that second from the last group. You start with that group that they're the second most fucked up. They need to be treated, and they need to be treated now. The people that needed to be treated 5 minutes ago, most of them will probably die. A good chunk of them, even if you started work on them
All I
right
hear
now.
is a good argument for like why we actually need to be pouring more money into health services other than fucking bailouts for like major corporations. Like,
Well, the thing is that it doesn't matter how advanced the tech is until we reach the point where it is literally, well, you just stick the person in this tube and they come out whole. Doesn't matter what the fuck's wrong with them. They have stage 4 cancer, stick them in the tube. They don't have cancer. They're missing 3/4 of their body, stick them in the tube. They come back whole. Until we reach...
I just don't don't know why any
We're-
society prioritizes other regards other than like the well-being of its citizens. Like without a society, without people, we don't have a society. How is healthcare not first and foremost?
Well, because when it comes, oh, Adam, do you want to go because you started jumping in?
I was gonna say I think we'll get those medical tubes sooner than later, I should say. But in terms of the scenario we were talking about earlier, it just I just imagine like it that scenario would be like a war field where it's like, oh shit, who do we pick first? You know, it's like, but yeah, you know, I get what you're saying, but it's contextual and
The thing is,
who's going to survive quicker and
it isn't just a warfare or a battlefield. That is every day, at every major accident scene, at every ER, these choices are being made. Because
well, I mean, well,
that
for that,
when-
but I mean, I'm saying, I mean, I've had some stays at the hospital, and it wasn't always, you know, holy shit, we got to pick and choose who's gonna live and die, but that is there, you know, for sure.
no, that is there even when you've been there. Because I'm willing to bet you've gone to an ER before, right?
Yeah.
So they told you how long your wait was going to be, correct?
Once.
Yeah.
And then the other times it's been, we'll get to you when we get to you.
I was in the hospital for a while. What I did not consent to was the class visiting me, but I did agree to be at the hospital for a week.
Oh, yeah, I was there for.
You know what's weird when you're hallucinating on a very high fever is to have a bunch of fucking like young 20-somethings gape at you like.
Oh yeah, if you're at a teaching hospital, you will become a.
I didn't sign up to be a fucking project. Like,
They
why the
come in
fuck?
there with notes.
Dude, I can't
When it comes to
I
teaching
can't even watch Courage the Cowardly Dog. Why the fuck do you think I would be comfortable having like almost 24 people staring at me? It's like, dude, no.
When it
Wow.
comes to a teaching hospital, that is effectively teaching hospitals typically cost a bit less than a standard hospital. And part of the reason why they cost a bit less is because when you go to a teaching hospital, yeah, you've agreed.
I was a minor at that point.
Ooh.
Your parents agreed. Or whoever the guardian was agreed, or the person that had the
I
say
didn't like
agreed.
being stared at when I was hallucinating.
Yep. But yeah, that's the thing about that. If you're at a teaching hospital, you will be used as a example. That's just baked into it. But yeah, every time that you've gone to an ER and you've been told how long it's going to take you, or your estimated wait time, the estimated wait time is triage. It's
Well,
that nurse
I can't adjust that only because it was the last time that happened was during the COVID time. So I
Yep.
don't know if COVID had a play in that, and
No, it
you know,
shifted
especially
around
with
what category was what, but it was functionally the same, and probably it.
well, they had people in the hallways, like they didn't
Yep.
even have. So I mean, I hadn't seen that before, so I can only assume that was because of the COVID shit. Because prior to that, when I had a stint at the hospital, it wasn't, you know, it wasn't as drastic as that, you know.
Mhm.
But yeah, no, the last time I was in there for 2-3 days, yeah, they had people in the hallways and shit, but
Yep.
it wasn't. But like I said, I think that was more for the COVID.
Overflow beds.
Yeah.
Is how they're typically referred to.
Oh well, yeah, that could be it too.
Oh yeah,
Assassin.
Oh yeah, assassin. Talking about Chicago, yeah, that's part of it. But then there's also the U.S. military combat surgeons. They do often do tours to inner city hospitals as part of their training, and it is to get familiar with, this is a stabbing, this is a gunshot wound, this is a high caliber gunshot wound.
Well, on the surface, that's fair. Yeah,
How
you
awesome would
also
that be?
have to be experienced.
Yeah, it's a fairly common thing for them to end up going to hospitals in order to see firsthand the sort of trauma that they have to get familiar with. But like I say, every time that you go to an ER, that calculation's being done. It isn't being done obviously. It's being done by that nurse. And there's something that people will often complain about when they go to an ER, and it's because they don't know what the fuck is going on when it comes to triage. You'll hear about the person who goes in horrendous pain, and they're crying and they're screaming and they're wailing, and they're told that they have to wait in the waiting room. So they sit down and they're still just completely beside themselves. They're overwrought with the pain, and then someone comes in and that person is quiet and they're getting talked to by the nurse, and then they're immediately led back in while they're still sitting there screaming in pain, and no one's paying attention to them. So there's a thing that is commonly known in healthcare, which is if the patient has the energy to scream, that knocks them down in priority. If someone comes in with an injury, so if you have two people that come in with the same sort of injury, one of them is screaming and wailing and gnashing their teeth, and the other one is extremely quiet and being extremely skinflint with their words. They are answering every question in the fewest words possible. You will take the person that is answering the question in the fewest words possible.
I don't know why, but it reminded me of like a scene from like HBO John Adams or something like that, where they're like, here, have him drink this, and they're just chugging rum down the dude's throat, and then he's like, ah, and then they have him bite down on some rope as they about to saw his leg off and shit.
Yep.
And it's like, yeah, they're like, if he's screaming, just fucking pump him full of something to shut him up, and then fucking chug a rope in his mouth. Because I did hear that. I would say that the more gut-wrenching thing was hearing I mean, I don't know if it was it, but it certainly sounded like it. But it sounded like the crying of somebody who just witnessed a loved one pass, and it was one of those things where I was like, I was sitting there laying in, because I was for an overnight, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, I'm hearing it, and I'm like, oh god.
Mm-hmm. There's people that will find what I just said kind of fucked sounding, but the reason why the person who's screaming and wailing and gnashing their teeth is taken after the person who is being
why are we at a hospital? I don't want to be here, man. It's supposed to be a Friday happy day.
Being as efficient with their speech as they possibly can is because the person who's as efficient with their speech as they possibly can be is actively having to fight or to get those words out. Whereas the person that is screaming and wailing and gnashing their teeth is able to expend all that energy doing that, which means that they have a fuck ton of energy. Yep, it's one of the things that, as Assassin just brought up, if someone is making a drama, they're far from dying. They assess if someone is going into shock when they talk to someone as well as bleeding. Exactly. Yep, and if every breath is pain, you get very economical in your speech. Exactly what both Sora Luna and Assassin of the Grey just said. So every time that you go to an ER, triage is being done.
Aha!
Now,
I will
you
say,
don't.
hey, to counter what you three just proclaimed, but each scream of pain is a fucking scream of pain. This person is in peril. And I would also say that even though that they may be put at the bottom of the totem pole, at the same end, they are at a facility that they are hoping would alleviate said pain. So I mean,
Oh yeah,
it'd be one thing if they were doing that at their own home, but it's another thing when they're at a place that's supposed to help them and they're like, "Oh, yeah, but you know what? You're screaming and you're crying in pain, but you know what? This guy's whispering and he's slowly dying, so we're gonna go ahead and tend to him." This is like,
yeah. But the thing is that every doctor can see one patient at any given time.
oh yeah, that's why I
So
say we need to in areas where it has a high volume of these types of scenarios. I think we need more doctors and or spread things out because, like I said, if you're in an area where a lot of this shit doesn't happen, a lot of these doctors aren't dealing with this shit. So, but
mhm.
and they probably could, send them out, ship some of these really in pain people out to the countryside for rehabilitation or healing or whatever the fuck it needs.
Oh, Adam,
Uh,
that is already being done, and it is being done without having to tell anyone to do it.
really? That's
Yeah,
awesome.
that's when you look at
That's
the
great.
density of hospitals in an area. So I was EMS, and I worked it for a series of years, and I worked in the Northern Virginia, DC area. If you look at the number of facilities in an area, the population density as well as the rate of violent injuries increases the number of hospitals in a set area. So DC, when you look at DC, has a fucking ridiculous number of hospitals. When you look at Northern Virginia has a goddamn ridiculous number of hospitals as well. There were 6 hospitals that I would often transport between that were within 10-15 minutes of each other. So if one hospital was getting their shit pushed in because they got a large number of one of the hospitals right near the highway, so it got a shit ton of car accidents. And they were looking at their beds and they were going, well, we have a 10-car pileup that's coming in, and we don't have the beds available for all the patients that we'll need. They would contact a company. The group that I worked with was one of the groups that they would end up contacting to come in and take the patients from their ER to one of the other hospital ERs or to one of the other hospital wards. And we would come in, we'd move them, and they would also move the patients internally. So if they had a bunch of trauma coming in and they needed room in their ER, one of the hospitals that I worked out of was one of the largest in the region. They would just end up shuffling the patients that they had in their ER, which was a large fucking ER, to various other sections of the hospital that corresponded with the type of treatment that they were getting. And they're just bleed as many people from their ER as they possibly could. If someone was good enough that they could be let out at that point, they would just go, okay, this is how you're going to continue maintaining the situation that you're in right now. If anything changes, come back immediately. But you're at a point that you're good to go home. If they couldn't do that, like I said, they would bump them to one of the other sections of the hospital. If they couldn't do that, they would bump them to one of the other hospitals in the area. And it would either be bumping them to one of the other hospitals in the area's ER or bumping them to one of the other hospital's wards. And that would be what would happen every single time that one ER was getting completely overrun. And again, this was something that no one had to tell these hospitals to do it. These hospitals already did it because they had to. They realized that they had to. They set up this system and they kept doing it. And you say the assassin, but DC has a fucking ridiculous number of hospitals, and it has a ridiculous number of Trauma 1 rated hospitals. Trauma 1 is a high level of trauma rated. So, yeah, if I think Trauma 1 through Trauma 3, Trauma 1 is the gold standard, if I remember correctly, at least in the area that I work. So, it is a constant thing that people would be shuffled to different hospitals. And if an area requires more hospitals and more doctors, what would happen is would be more hospitals that pop up in that area. And also, those hospitals would hire on additional doctors of the sort that they needed. Now, the problem is that a lot of hospitals are undergoing administration bloat.
You
and
see, that's
good chunk of that's due to government interference.
Yeah, I was gonna say, well, both. It's people looking to get a kickback for doing nothing outside of pushing paperwork, and then good old government trying to get their cut. But
the thing is that first category that you mentioned wouldn't really be able to do anything, wouldn't be able to justify why they were working there if not for government just pouring money in.
Well, that, but also there's kind of a need for some of it only in terms of the opposite end. It's a checks and balance type of thing, It just needs to be better regulated by the actual people who are using the services and operating within them, because it's not fair for the doctors either to be working within these type of conditions. If they went into the field to try and help people, but they're constantly being bogged down by politics and bureaucrats and chairboard people, it doesn't benefit anybody. And again, what you were saying, where if they didn't have enough space to fill the capacity that they would ship the patients off. Honestly, that it just makes sense. It makes sense if there's a patient who can be sent to a hospital elsewhere that they need time, that they're gonna be there for a while. Send them out somewhere far that the doctors aren't going to be taking on such a high stress load. So that way, the areas where they need the quick in and out fucking patient care, those doctors aren't having to deal with, oh shit, this patient, I'm going to have to deal with him for the next couple of months. It's like, no, he's going to be dealt with doctors who have nothing else to do, so let's do that.
One of the other things that has been popping up a lot in a bunch of different areas to help with ER strain are standalone ERs.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's not even tethered to a higher. There's the hospitals that are actually taking care of patients that are doing whatever they have to do, and then there's the hardcore, like, you're only going to this area if you've got a leg blown off, like type of thing.
Go to this standalone ER, and the standalone ER will triage you and start diagnosing what's going on. So the vast majority of people that show up at the standalone ER stay at the standalone ER for their short time that they need to be in the hospital because they aren't actually down with anything severe. They got dehydrated. So they're in that standalone ER getting a bag of saline put into them, thus rehydrating. They're good to go after they're done with a bag or two of saline. Then you have other patients that they come in and they have a broken leg, but it's not ridiculously broken. It's just a standard break. So they're able to handle those types of injuries as well. And the standalone ER will handle that entirely. But then you have other times when someone will show up and they're suffering a stroke. Now, stroke needs a cath lab. It needs much larger facility support. Needs a whole bunch of different fucking things.
Different
that standalone ER will immediately contact, depending on the area, a private ambulance company or the local ambulance service.
Real quick, before I forget, because it tethers in. Assassin brought up it's level 1 trauma unit, combat surgical hospital, CASH, what they call MASH units today. And yes, I was actually thinking about that. It's like, I was thinking like the first thing that brought to my mind is like the immediate fucking hospital area where units would come in straight from the battlefield, and if it's something that they can fix right away, they'll fix right away. If not, get the fuck right back to the back of the field. And again, it's like, and like what you were just saying, it's like, yeah, dude, that makes sense. If you have a broken leg that you can just be really quick, fix it up and get them the fuck out of here. You know, we don't have to spend time. Oh, you have Alzheimer's and you need, well, you know what? You're gonna have to go over here and deal with. But the other thing that I was thinking, oh shit, fucking broken leg, and oh yeah, what you guys were talking about earlier, or you and Sora Luna out in chat. Hiya, Sora. The student training stuff.
Yep, the training hospital, the teaching hospital.
That could be utilized for here. You know, like, hey, we're gonna fix up this fucking dude's broken leg real quick, and we'll show you how to do it, and get him right back to, you know, get the fuck out of here. So here we go, and they get their dissertation, and they go on about, dude, we just solved it. How in the fuck? Oh, right, because
it's already being done. It is, yeah. All this shit is shit that I've actually dealt with when I was an EMT. So, when it was the standalone ER, if it exceeded the level of care that standalone ER was able to do, which the example I was just going into was a stroke. Stroke needs a cath lab. So, a standalone ER is not going to have a full cath lab. What they do have is they have a list of all the local cath labs and all the hospitals with cath labs. So they would immediately, the moment that they realized this person is having a stroke, they would call ahead to the receiving facility. They would go, this is what we're sending you, while another person is at the same time calling a ambulance, either an ambulance company, which is a private ambulance company, or the local ambulance service. Different areas have different policies. Some areas are entirely private ambulance. Some areas are private and public. Some of them are just public. So depending on what sort of system they have in their area, they would call the corresponding type of ambulance. And then that ambulance would show up within the next, on those calls, we typically had a 10-minute response time that we were allowed at the absolute maximum. So at the ER, they would be rendering the care that they could to prevent any further damage being done. We would show up, we would haul them over to the cath lab. The cath lab would continue the treatment. Boom, done, dusted. So it was already something that's done, and it's already something that we didn't have to mandate that people did this shit. It was, people went, this is a part of the market that is not being properly seen to. So I'm going to do something in order to meet this demand in the market. And they did it. And it works. It is fantastic. The main problems when you're talking about the cost of healthcare are not the things that you would think of when it comes to the cost of healthcare. So, most people, probably when they're thinking, okay, what would the cost of medical care be? It would be, okay, it's the doctors and nurses that treat you. Everyone automatically thinks of that. Makes sense, right? They need to be paid, so you have to pay them. Then the cost of the equipment used on you, again, makes sense. So you have to pay for that. And then probably a charge for the bed space that you took up while you were being treated. If people think a little bit longer, then they'll also add in, oh yeah, administrative costs. So those are the things that most people think of when they think of the cost of healthcare. Also, any medicine that you were given gets tacked on. So what people don't think about is when you see that medical bill, you're not only paying for you, you're paying for the people that, or you're paying some percentage of the people that didn't pay for their medical care as part of your bill. So someone comes in, they get treated, they never pay back. That is going into your bill by at least some percentage. Then also, we live in the US. The US is ridiculously litigious. So everyone in that process needs malpractice insurance. So the doctor has to have coverage. The nurses have to have coverage. The facility itself has to have coverage. You got medicine given to you. Well, that medicine came from a pharmacist. So the pharmacist needs coverage. And also because that pharmacist works at a pharmacy, that pharmacy needs coverage. And also there were janitors. Those janitors need to be covered against lawsuit in case you got pissy and decided to sue them as well as everyone else in this chain thus far. So the janitors have fucking coverage. The companies that provided the medical equipment, they also need coverage against the lawsuit, so they have coverage. Everything. Oh, the company that cleans the linens for the hospital, they have to have some level of coverage as well. So in your medical bill, you're paying for all the things that make sense. The doctors that saw you, the nurses that saw you, the amount of time that they took treating you, the bed space that you took up, the admin staff, and then like food and whatnot, if that was provided. You pay for all of that, but then you're also paying for people that weren't able to pay for their cover or for their treatment, so you have to pay in order to make up the loss that the hospital would be taking if they didn't get that money back by some means. So you're paying for that. Also, you're paying for all of the coverages that need to be in place so that they aren't vulnerable to lawsuits. And then it's just you also have to pay for all of the shit that was effectively imposed by the government, because there's certain regulations, certain bits of red tape. So you have to pay for all of the stuff that they have to do in order to meet all of those requirements that the government put onto the facilities. So you're paying for all of that.
I'm going to say the same thing I told the cashier lady earlier today when she tried showing me the computer screen about the tally. And I'm going to say, you know what? Give a shit. I don't give a shit about what your tally says. It's still bullshit. I understand where one would say, hey, yeah, we need linen insurance because so and so and such, and we need to pay to the machines that were bought 20, 30 years ago. You know, all of this stuff. I get that, but it's bullshit. It's 100% bullshit. Like,
Oh yeah.
the only ones that I can understand, like, oh yeah, I can understand the feasible paying for it, is the actual services, like the doctor coming in, spending the time and talking with you, and if they were actually good at their profession, um, I'd pay because it's worth that he went to a school or she went to a school, whatever, and they took they became good doctors, and I got a good checkup from them. That's worth paying. But if I'm sitting there and hey, you're gonna go and take this X-ray machine. Oh, okay. Why is it so much? Oh, well, because we gotta make sure that we gotta cover these and we gotta do this and then we gotta pay for this machine. And it's like, well, what in the fuck? I spent 30 minutes here.
Yep.
And all you
But
did was
the
take
thing
a
is
picture.
that
And
if they don't
I,
pass
I
that,
get it, but it's still bullshit. It's like I understand whatever dialogue box you want to feed me. It's at the end of the day, it's okay, but that's still bullshit, dude. that's
no, it's absolutely something that you should be going, oh, fuck this.
no.
But
We should work at working it out and adjusting it for sure. But
and that's what we should be trying to do. The thing
Yeah,
is that
100%.
the solutions that people offer in order to fix it
Dude,
don't actually
a lot
deal
of them are bullshit, especially where they're just like, oh, you should just when it's free. It's like, well, no,
Yep.
they still need resources to do it, but at the same end, when they try and weasel out, like, oh, well, we still got to pay this, this thing that we did for this and this walking machine, we still got to pay for this. Get the fuck out of here, dude. Come on, man.
See, the
When
thing
I
is
was
that
doing
you
physical
get
therapy,
overcharged for making sure everything else runs smoothly. It's not just like it's not the cost of you per se. It's the cost of you and then what they can get out of you.
yeah,
well, no, it's not so much what they can get out of you as what they need to have in order to keep functioning. Because if they don't make up the losses that they take on the patient that doesn't pay, well, that hospital is now going out of business and no one gets to go to that hospital. That's how that turns out. So they need to make back that loss that they take on the patient that doesn't pay.
I think I don't know if the number for the patient who doesn't pay is that much as opposed to all the other areas that they could cover their costs for it.
It is a fuck ton for the patient that doesn't pay. The single largest contributor to the medical bill, hands down, is the protection against lawsuits, which, as Prospero has said many times,
that takes a lot bigger chunk of the pie.
Oh, like I said, that is by far the largest share, is the protection. As Prospero has said many times, and as Assassin of the Gray referred to, tort reform is the solution for that. No one offers tort reform, though. So that would be the largest cut. The cost of the patients that aren't able to pay being tacked onto other people is probably the second or third largest fix. If you could come up with another way of dealing with that, then you would reduce the bill drastically. The thing is that
hold on. Not to say that I'm a Democrat or fucking blue type of person, but I think, hey, people on that end, this is where you could fucking find an inline into getting that. Find some way to work in a law where you could work out where the monetary value goes into paying for that cost, and as opposed to all the other bullshit that you might want to address it into it, but working at that as
the thing is that as if we were able to handle the tort reform issue, then the number of people that aren't able to pay would decrease drastically, which would also mean that the cost of the patients that aren't able to pay would decrease drastically, which would again mean that the number of patients that aren't able to pay would decrease drastically, which then means it's a positive feedback loop.
Well, then hit them both at the same end. Why are we?
Because no one has the will to tackle tort reform.
Hold on. You know what? I think. Look, I'm not gonna lie. I've smoked maybe a bowl or two of marijuana. So perhaps our plans aren't going to be feasible because of that. I think what we've addressed, I think, is way beyond the bounds. Learned men have tried to tackle these issues and have come up with nothing. But us tonight, nothing, right? I guess, I don't know.
The way it works is that the only fix to the pricing that would actually be viable is the tort reform fix. That's the one that is, unfortunately, in the current situation, the least likely to happen. The other options that people are giving, they don't actually tackle the price at the source. So we just need to make it single payer. Congratulations, we're now paying a fuck ton of money in order to get a decreased quality of service. And also, we're getting a decreased quality of service for that same fuck ton of money. That is also going to slow the rate of development within the country. Because this is something that I bring up constantly. Most people don't fucking know about. And the ones that do know about it, a chunk of them wish that this wasn't the case. When you look at the rate of novel medication and treatment development, the U.S. is responsible for over 51% in the past 2 decades. So out of all the novel medicines and novel treatments that have popped up in the entire fucking world in the past 2 decades, the U.S. is responsible for over 50%. One nation versus all the others.
Well, I mean, America is pretty much oddly leading at a lot of weird fucking things too. I'm sorry. I just had a brain fart. I was like thinking about hospitals and shit.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's the thing that pisses me off about it, because if you want the best medical care that you can get, and you want it to be the cheapest that you can make it, you have to go and attack the problem at the source itself. You don't just go, well, we'll make someone else pay. Okay, that doesn't fix any of the payment issues. And actually doing that worsens it on the whole, because if you're able to crush the R&D of the U.S. medical field, you've just gotten rid of 51% of the world's R&D in medicine.
Oh, okay. That's where I think we were going at. Yeah. I think that's where I disagree with you. I would say that these things should be separate. Public health care in terms of
so how will you separate
country? Well, I was separated by you find their own funding, share the resources, but find their own funding. That's what I would say. Public health care in terms of the taxpayer should be focused on that. None of that should go into R&D. could there be separate entities that could be
Well,
brought
if
up
none
to
of
do
that
that?
goes into
I would
R&D,
say
if none of that goes into R&D, because the current cost of R&D is paid
the
for
hold
by
on. The only reason I say this is because it muddies the water and it starts pushing. It starts getting to where we're at now, where we're having areas where they would rather push for the development of R&Ds as opposed to trying to just fix people, help people. And I think if we're going to spend money on the healing of humans, let's put the money to that. If we're going to have R&D development into the procedures of, vaccinations or antidotes, whatever, let's make that a separate thing. But share the resources. I'm fair with that. If you're getting information while you're healing people, that
the thing
would be
is that
beneficial to the people who are trying to develop
the thing is,
diseases and all that.
well, you
That's
can say, well, you separate these two things. You
mainly
can't
in the
actually,
financial business.
yeah, but you can't actually do that is the problem, because the way that the R&D for novel medicines is funded is companies sell the medicine that they currently make. A certain chunk of that is profit. A certain chunk of that profit is then poured into R&D. So we just make it so that the government pays. Well, now every company has the incentive to increase the cost of medicine because now it's a nebulous group. So theoretically, it could end up increasing the rate of R&D for a short period of time. But then what's going to happen after every company ends up increasing the amount of every medicine? Because now it's a single payer, well, the government will try to do what the government has tried to do every single time that it's taken over paying for something. They will then declare that there's a price freeze. That price freeze will cause everything to collapse, as price freezes have always done.
Mhm.
So that's what I'm saying, that well, yes, you can say the words, well, we separate them. In practice, you can't, because the money that companies get from, so hospitals that are working on novel treatment regimens, so different methods to surgeries or different surgical robots and shit like that, they get money from the procedures that they're already doing, and then they spend a portion of that money in doing this bit of research. If you try to separate the funding for everything else and the funding for R&D, now you've either, like I said, ended up where everyone just spikes the price, the government freezes the price, and then that causes a collapse, as it has always done every time that there's been a price freeze. Or, what is actually worse, you now have the government saying, well, you need to trim that R&D out of the cost that you're charging us. We're the only ones buying now, by the way. So now all the money that would go towards R&D, there is no source for. So it just dies.
Well, first off, I gotta say I have a fairly poor bias on R&D to begin with a lot of these companies. So in terms of something like Pfizer, if like I said, if they want information that is gleaned from actual physicians working on patients, that may benefit their work and their research in new developments in vaccines or antidotes, whatever, I'm all for that. But that shouldn't be subsidized by the taxpayers, because at the same
That's
end, they're gonna turn around and say, "Well, we want to profit from it." Well, Why? Well, what did
That's
you
what I was
do to get
just
that information other than just saying, well, you owe us taxes for it? From where? That sounds like
that's
a
what I was
racket to me.
that was what I was just about to say, that your problem with the R&D is not so much the public R&D market. It's when someone, because the moment that you mentioned Pfizer specifically, I'm willing to bet that your issue with that is that Pfizer had a locked in government contract, a government monopoly that then it used to dump into research.
Well, them
That
amongst
the,
others, but
the
yes.
monopoly is the part that would bother me. The government endorsed monopoly aspect. Pfizer spending the money that they make from producing novel drug X to produce novel drug Y, or to attempt to produce novel drug Y. I have absolutely no problem. Now, the government saying the only people that we're going to buy X from are Pfizer, and we're going to buy a absurd amount. By the way, no one is going to buy it other than us and other governments. It's not going to be something that there's a individual market for. That is the part that bothers me. If we're talking individual market sales, I don't give a shit about it, because that is, they're making a product that has already been determined by the market to be worth what they're selling it for. And then they're using that in order to plow back into their company and develop the next thing that they hope will be able to make them that much money again. And this happens time and time again. It's a good thing that this happens time and time again, because again, that's how you end up with one nation being responsible for over 51% of all the novel drugs within the past 2 decades. And actually, I think the number goes up if you expand it outside of the past 2 decades.
I don't know, man, but at the same end, they've also been attributed to a lot of diseases and plagues. So I mean, it's a half and half with it. So, and I mean, personally, this is an Adam Jones bit. You know, I'm putting my tinfoil hat on, so I don't trust any of these fucking people to begin with. Personally, you know, I understand where you're coming from, but yeah, no. To me, it's all a scam. And
The thing is that it isn't when you actually look at the result. And by they create a lot of diseases, I'm willing to bet that you're talking about like the resistant drug or resistant bacteria. Is that where you're going?
not really, but sure,
Like
go for
MRSA
that.
and the various other superbugs?
Are you talking about the stuff that's coming up now, or
Talking about MRSA, MRSA has been out since the, I want to say mid 90s was when MRSA really got big. Then we got Versa after that. Then we got Tursa after that. Now we're back to MRSA because people got sick of coming up with different names, so they just decided that the M would stand for multi.
no? I was talking about the stuff that was going on in Africa, and then like the Baltic area. But then, you know, just all the bullshit that's been going on recently, with new springs coming up, and it's a joke. And I'm looking at it, and I'm like, and these people still want to tell you that, you know, we also have the cure. It's, I don't know.
Oh yeah,
But at
them
the same
saying
end,
that we have a cure is ridiculous, and that should be something that's pointed out. The fact that so many different areas, you can't say no, this isn't a cure, because well, you'll
I think
get slapped in the
No.
sin bin is a massive issue.
I think
But
we should.
when it comes to the
Chloe's pairing my Apple Watch to my phone for me.
oh, she's talking to someone else. Okay. So
well, I was gonna say,
when it
how's
comes
it going,
to
Johnny Hellcat? Out in the chat. No, dude, I just think we should probably.
see, I was going to go for a different thing because, like I said, I thought that you were going to go for the MRSA Versa. I'm just going to quickly mute her for a moment because she's talking to someone near her rather than. So when it comes to the MRSA, because a lot of people have said, well, drug companies have made MRSA. No, drug companies did not make MRSA. Do you know how the resistant strains of bacteria pop up?
Well, I didn't bring up MRSA, so I'm not gonna really
So
have any discussion on that.
resistant strains of bacteria pop up primarily due to one thing and one thing only. You know how when you get an antibiotic, the doctor tells you, take all of it? I don't care if you feel better partway through, continue taking it until you run out of it. You've had that happen before, right? You've gotten a Z-Pack. It's normally a 7 days worth of doses, and they tell you make sure that you take the entire 7 days.
I could say I've had maybe you could say the opposite, where I'm like, hey doc, I'm feeling some different effects, and he's like, hey, let's bump your fucking prescription. Let's up your
that's
dosage.
for different sorts of meds, but I'm saying for
Okay,
antibiotics
Oh,
specifically. So like Z-Pack, Augmentin, things like that.
no, I don't think I've ever had like a bionical type of or botanical
Bacterial?
bacterial stuff. I don't think I've ever had one of those.
You've never had like postnasal drip? Shit, you're lucky. So there's
Wait, is that what it is?
postnasal drip. It's a common thing. You
Like a
have
runny
a
nose?
runny nose that drips down your throat, causes your throat to get all fucked up.
Oh yeah.
Then you go into the doc. The doc gives you some sort of med in order to dry out your nose, and they give you another sort of med in order to deal with an infection.
I thought you just gargled salt water.
That's for canker sores.
Oh. No wonder it didn't work.
But yeah, there's postnasal drip is a common thing. So you'll often get like a Z-Pack, Augmentin, something along those lines in order to deal with any bacterial infection that is caused by your postnasal drip. So the thing that causes antibiotic-resistant strains to pop up is people ignore that constantly. And by constantly ignored, I don't mean like some people. No, I mean like the vast majority of people will hear, take this medicine until you run out of it. And the moment that they start feeling better, they'll stop taking the fucking medicine. And you don't take antibiotics that way. Because if you take antibiotics that way, you create superbugs. You need to take your antibiotics as directed. If they say, keep taking them until you're out of them, take them until you're out of them. And we've had this happen time and time again. So the example that I first brought up was MRSA. Because MRSA was the second in the chain of major antibiotic-resistant bacteria that we were dealing with. We had penicillin came out during the World War and then really hit the market right after the World War. And it was heralded as this miracle drug because you could take penicillin and it would cure what ails you. If it was a bacterial infection, penicillin would knock that shit out. And it was fantastic. So people started getting prescribed penicillin when they got sick. And it worked for the longest period of time. Then we came up against what was known as PRSA, penicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus. And penicillin couldn't do a goddamn thing to PRSA. So people had to scramble, and they figured out that, oh, penicillin no longer works on PRSA, which is why it then became known as PRSA. But we can use methicillin, and if we use methicillin,
Can I use Alexander?
if we
He'll work
use
perfectly against Persa.
if we use methicillin, then methicillin works against Persa. So they started prescribing methicillin. And methicillin, again, heralded as a fantastic miracle drug that did all kinds of awesome shit. They were able to treat it, and things were amazing. And it worked for the longest period of time, and people were being prescribed methicillin, so they would take methicillin and it would work. It would knock out whatever bacterial infection they had, and then they would start to feel better and they'd stop taking methicillin. After enough people started doing this, we started realizing that shit, there's something that methicillin isn't working against. It's a Staph aureus. Fuck, we'll call it MRSA, methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus. So they then scrambled and they figured out that vancomycin will work against MRSA. So they started using vancomycin. Again, heralded as this fantastic drug that was able to treat these dangerous diseases and could knock out a ridiculous number of bacterial infections. So it was prescribed and people started getting vancomycin a lot. And then people started to not take vancomycin correctly. They'd stop taking it the moment that they started to feel better. And sure as shit, we had Versa pop up. Vancomycin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus. Then we went to another drug. I can't remember which one it was off the top of my head. I want to say it was tetracycline, but it might have been a different one. And I know it began with a T. That one started being prescribed. Again, it was fantastic. Again, people started taking it wrong. And Tursa popped up. And then we got another drug. And then they decided, fuck this. We keep on having to rename this fucking thing. Let's just stick with MRSA. It is now multi-resistant Staph aureus. And they ran with MRSA. But the thing that causes antibiotic-resistant strains to pop up is when people don't take their meds properly. When people are given antibiotics and you're told, take your antibiotic until you run out of your antibiotic. Take your fucking antibiotic until you run out of your antibiotic. Don't stop that shit early unless a doctor fucking tells you to.
Exactly. I didn't realize I was muted, but I was like kind of raging with you at that point. Like, dude, just take your full course.
Yep.
Shouldn't get resistant until you like don't take your full course.
Yep. And that's
even the Hulkster says it. You should take your vitamins, say your prayers, and I forget what the other one was. But take your vitamins and your full meds. Definitely your full meds.
It's a constant thing, though. That this is what keeps on popping up. And, by the way, hello, everyone. Apparently, they were sent over from, according to Cannibalistic, they were sent over from Monkey. If that's true, fuck yeah, thanks. But...
What? We're getting raided?
Yeah, monk raid. But yeah, take your fucking antibiotics, because if you don't take your antibiotics, you're going to create resistant strains of bacteria. And you can take my fucking words on this, because...
You want super spreaders? That's how you get super spreaders. Hold on.
Because when I was goddamn in college, in order to graduate, I evolved antibiotic-resistant strains of bacteria ex vivo. It was what I did in order to get my degree. So I did an entire experiment where I just was evolving antibiotic-resistant strains and figuring out how it worked, doing all that good shit. So I actually have laboratory experience studying this shit. Just pisses me off that it keeps on. I hear people every so often say, well, the drug companies made antibiotics. No, you ignorant asshole. You made them. You made them when you stopped taking your fucking antibiotics. When you went, I feel good now. I don't need to take this anymore. Now, see, my experiment was ethically done and done properly, so I am absolutely not Fauci. And I didn't just do one. I'm not an underachiever. I made several. I had like 2 to 3 different antibiotics, and I had 2 to 3 different bacteria that I was using. So I did somewhere, the low end estimate is I made 4. The high end estimate
Why is Monkey raining?
is that I made 9. And mine fucking worked. I was able to do it successfully. And I didn't release my shit, which is why my school's attrition rate didn't change its meaning the following year. And for those, just to make sure that everyone gets that joke, the school attrition rate in college is the number of people that drop out. Attrition rate is also the number of people that die.
Dark.
So it was a running joke between my roommate and I my senior year that if I fucked up my experiment, the school's attrition rate would suddenly change its meaning.
I want to know why Monkey would send a raid. What did we do to you, Monkey?
I don't know. Let's do it again.
Monkey's cool people, though.
No, I don't like that.
More like he must have ended his stream. And then
Shall devise a plan of a counterattack. Monkey, I hope you are not streaming Sunday.
But yeah, that's the way that shit works, and it just pisses me off every time that I hear that conspiracy theory, because there's a lot of conspiracy theories that aren't actually conspiracy theories. That just people like to say that anything that they can't argue against is suddenly a conspiracy theory. Then there's actual fucking conspiracy theories. So it's an actual
Like
fucking
aliens?
conspiracy theory that. So when I say actual fucking conspiracy theory, I mean it's a conspiracy theory that doesn't have any real backing. So we faked the moon landing, that's bullshit.
Oh shit. Well, hold on. Hate Camel just added to the conspiracy theory. So apparently Monkey didn't call for a raid. Kyverdam just posted the link at the end of Monkey's stream.
Oh, nice.
Kyverdam.
we all hang out
Am I
in
saying that
similar
right?
circles. That's
Thank you,
just
Kyverdam.
Kia
Kyverdam?
doing her
Oh, I'm
job.
sorry.
And give her some love. Apparently she's received a bit of hate lately. She deserves some good feels.
Well, I hope you're not streaming on Sunday because you may receive a raid. I don't know if Kyverdam
Like that's a bad thing? Like people here should be feared? Well, I don't even know what you're trying to say.
No, I'm just goofing. I'm just playing. I wasn't gonna even raid Monkey on Sunday.
Sorry I missed that, Kyverdam. I was in the middle of a full rant,
Kyverdam.
and you know how the fuck it is when I get in the middle of a rant. And yeah, the body count is not really a conspiracy in the same way that the moon landing is. That would be the former definition of conspiracy theory, where it's people that don't have an ability to disprove something will just label something a conspiracy theory and then treat it as if that was disproving it right then and there.
Well, what are some of your two's favorite conspiracy theories?
Do you mean conspiracy theory in the thing that is actually probably true, but people dismiss it conspiracy theory way? Or do you mean conspiracy theory as in, no, this is absolute batshit insanity?
Well, I mean, that's
Because I have very different answers for each.
well, that's a weighted response either way. If someone figures it's more real, but it's not accepted from the general public, I'm sure the guy who snapshot the picture of Bigfoot is sitting there like, yeah, it was real. I want to say my favorite one is this weird one where I swear I've seen it before. I think actually Michelle or I think she goes by Chatmort on
On Twitter?
yeah. I think it was her. She posted the image of
Chatmort? Really?
like yeah, she posted the image of like this alien thing where it was like it had onion head, and it's one of those things where it's like it was a UFO landed in, I think it was a Russian town, and all these
Mhm.
little kids saw it, and these aliens came out, and they had these like weird um, onion light heads, and I don't know. I think the aliens just came out and they're like, whoa, and they came back into the spaceship and ran away, and like the kids all drew the same image, and I always see it pop up, and I'm sitting there like, oh shit, it's the fucking alien head.
Nice.
That's my conspiracy theory. Yeah, I like that one.
So, what about you, Gabby? Do you have a favorite?
A favorite conspiracy theory? It depends on the day.
On the day?
It depends on the day. I don't know.
What about it?
One thing is a conspiracy theory. The other like day is a fact. It's a factoid. I'm really not. I'm more of a weeb. I really don't deal with that kind of stuff anymore. So I don't know what to say in that regard.
One of my favorite, just this is funny to think about, but it's not true ones, is the idea that octopi and squid are alien beings.
Thanks for all
What?
the fish. Thanks for all the fish.
There's a conspiracy
Oh
theory
yeah.
that squid and octopi are aliens. Because they're just so fucking different from damn near everything else that you're going, what the fuck? How did these become a thing?
I've seen that. Yeah.
Because like there's
And
the vast majority of animals have iron-based blood, correct? And I'll just say correct because there's a long delay there. The vast majority of things have iron-based blood. Then there's some things that have cuprous-based blood. Like horseshoe crabs have cuprous blood. Which means that rather than it being iron that's holding onto the oxygen, it's copper. And actually the cuprous blood of horseshoe crabs is ridiculously helpful in checking the purity of a bunch of different drugs.
those people probably fucking spawned off the sea people. That's where the sea people came from.
But yeah,
I'm sorry.
there's a full-blown conspiracy theory that squid and octopi are fucking alien species. It's just
like
one of
that
those,
idea.
what the fuck, but it's hilarious.
It
So,
makes sense.
Yeah.
Well,
They
still,
can-
why do we know more about outer space than we do about our own oceans? So
Yeah, no, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know large chunks of the ocean.
Oh, yeah. We have guesses on some of it, and then other parts we're just going, oh, yeah, it's scary. Nah.
Yo, okay, hold on. Here's a question. Okay, so you're in a boat. We'll place us in a nice area in an ocean, a warm ocean, maybe South Pacific area, right? Okay, so nothing surrounding you but ocean. Would you take a dive in the water?
Nah. I'd at least poke my head under, see what's about.
You wouldn't put on some swim trunks and fucking dive in? I can tell you right now, I wouldn't. Fuck that.
Like I said, at the
Hell
very
no.
least,
I need a safety net. So
I'd need at least to poke my head in, see what's about. I'd be curious.
curiosity and preservation of life are two separate matters.
I'm also the person that dove down and didn't freak out about seeing a shark as I was swimming. I kept that from the other people I was swimming with when I saw it, by the way.
That's yeah. I think, my immediate thought process is as soon as I jump in, it's the Dune thump bumper where it's just all of a sudden just like the whole ocean just, oh my god, here's a juicy, spicy Hispanic dude. Go get him. And all of a sudden a giant whale's gonna come up and yeah, fuck that. I'm not going to the ocean. No. Nope.
Yeah, my response when I dove in and saw the shark was, I'm going to continue swimming down. Fuck it.
No.
And I swam.
Have you guys seen like the videos of like the deepest pool? I know it's not the ocean, but like still that is impressive too. Like the world's deepest pool.
The like
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
170 something.
Look like there's cities under there.
Something meters or some shit.
There literally is. Yeah, it's so fucking badass.
Yeah, there's a town that they built and flooded. It's fun. But yeah.
That'd be cool.
Like I said, I'd probably at least poke my head in.
Hey, yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, at least with that, if it's if it's controlled, for sure. But yeah, otherwise, no way.
And correction, assassin, I won't freak people out about a possible danger. If it was actually a serious danger, I would have. But it was a shark that I saw one of them, and it kind of looked at me and fucked off. So I went, whatever.
Okay, so what about the opposite? So what if there was a giant
What if there's a
dirigible?
giant me in a small ocean on me? Would the ocean take a dip?
Well, that was a
It's the opposite question.
yeah. I was gonna say a large dirigible or zeppelin, but either way. But you're floating over, whatever, landscape, whatever, or ocean, something, and you bungee jump. Would you bungee jump off of a blimp?
I see. This is the weird thing. I have no fear of heights. I
envy you, say.
Since a very tall dwarf.
The thing is, I have no fear of heights, but it is with a caveat. I have to either be holding on to something, or I have to be on something that I'm looking at and I'm going, yeah, this can hold me up. So metal grates kind of freak me out. Because thin metal grates, I'm going, there's a chance that my foot's just going to go through this at some point. But if I'm, like, holding onto a rock wall, I can be really fucking high up and I won't give a shit. Because I trust my hands and I trust my feet. So, bungee jumping's kind of that gray zone for me where I'm going, But if I know it's a strong enough bungee cord, I know it's in good repair, then yeah, I'd probably do it.
I mean, I wouldn't imply that anything would be rickety or anything. there's not a guy with a tank or a sweatshirt on or whatever, smoking a cigar, saying, "Oh yeah, it's good. It's all good." No, of course, 100% safety, bungee and or even like skydiving or something like that.
All right, absolutely, I'd do it. Fuck it.
Yeah, because I mean, bungee, I guess you just dangle, but skydiving makes more sense, I guess. What about you, Gabby?
I am never going to voluntarily jump out of a plane.
No.
Thank you.
Zeppelin.
Doesn't matter.
It's a big difference.
There's not very much of.
But yeah, no. I don't know. I'm just trying to like. At one end, we had fear of the depth of the
I have
ocean.
like guaranteed like fourth term cancer. Will I consider that? No. Other than that, no.
You would not what?
Unless she was already dying of something, she wouldn't. I think.
Yep.
Oh. So it's one of those bucket list type things, huh?
Yep.
Yeah, I guess I'm with you there. Although probably not, because I still, I don't know. Ugh. I get anxiety being in tall buildings. Ugh.
It's not a matter of just being in a tall building where you have a chance of survival. It's like if you're in an airplane or a helicopter or whatever flying aircraft, what have you, I would have to voluntarily gamble. And I am not much of a gambler. My luck sucks. Like I would have to take a chance on whether or not things are working out well, the equipment, or no, just
I just get
overall
the
no.
mental image of that bird meme of it was a calculated risk. Man, I'm bad at math.
I already suck at math, so I mean, again, gambling chances next to zero.
And apparently, Cannibalistic Wizard never goes down an escalator.
Hey, I saw that video of the dude's shoe get eaten up by the escalator. So
Oh, I thought you were going to.
Unless you're stuck in Russian Doll, I think it's safe to take the escalator or elevator.
See, I thought that Adam was going to bring up the time that a Chinese escalator ate a person.
what?
What?
There's
That
a
happened?
video. Yeah, there's a video of a catastrophic failure of an escalator where one of the parts of the escalator broke and the person fell into the mechanism.
Good God.
There's another one where it's an overloaded escalator and a woman tosses her child off the top to the waiting people before it collapses.
Well, I mean, that's to save her daughter.
Yep.
Holy bananas.
Yeah, I'm not recommending you go look for either of the two videos I just
I'm
recommended.
not going to. I want to be able to sleep tonight, so no thank you.
Adam's already pulled them up. He's watching
I'm
them on the
writing
big
them
screen.
down.
I hate you so much.
Toss Chinese babies. Let's go. Woo!
Tossed Chinese babies will probably yield an entirely different result than the one that I was talking about.
Oh man. And that right there, that comment alone just took the show on a positive note, and all of a sudden
And
Susan
if your
Tits
tossed Chinese babies video comes from the 60s or the 70s, do not watch it.
the 60s is oh shit.
That was at the height, I think that was at the height of the Chinese famine, where there's legitimate reports of people eating babies.
Dude, this show took some turns.
I just know things. I just know things, and something gets referenced that makes me go, I know something about this.
Yeah, but sometimes, when you find a connection point, you don't have to bring it up. That's
Right? There's There's other avenues, good sir.
you can chuckle to yourself and be like, haha, and then maybe after the show be like, oh hey, remember that time? Yeah.
Remember how
Allow me
almost
to
got that
introduce
fucked
you.
up?
Allow me to introduce you to Spurred Brain.
Hey, but it's brought us very much and many quality moments that we can always look back on. And I want to remind everybody watching, I want to thank you, and make sure you hit that like button and subscribe button and click that bell.
And
Oh
now
my
I'm being
God.
asked how I would cook a baby.
It really
yeah.
helps to the algorithm and ignore the comment section.
Don't worry, we won't use A1 sauce, so it's all good.
I would say that you'd have to kind of cook it like suckling pig.
Oh no.
I don't know what to do with you guys anymore.
What, do you think I'm wrong?
I don't want to know.
Because, yeah, if I'm having to gamble, I would say that my money would ride on like a suckling pig. Just like how, if you're talking about older, well, the only time that a recipe was written down that I know of is from Fish's letter. Also, don't read Fish's letter.
I'm gonna say I'm glad I have some extra Jameson left.
Yeah, I'm not going to recount what's in Albert Fish's letter. I'm just going to tell you, do not read Albert Fish's letter. It is fucked. But I just noticed what time it is. Shall we go into parting words?
On that cheery note.
Hold on, yeah, we gotta talk about some uplifting before we end it. We gotta.
Something, anything else.
Good
Would
God.
it help if we end on a
we can't
Alex
end on that one. No,
Would it help if we ended on an Alex Jones quote of, I have to tell you, I'd eat your ass.
We don't care about your own personal kings. We're talking about diverting the conversation away from like culinary aspects of cooking infants. Please, anything else?
Shit.
There's a reason cannibalism is on the bingo board.
Yeah.
Do we have a bingo board? Actually, that might be a fun thing to do. Like how Donut Operator has his own like a bingo card.
There's a full drinking game.
What do you mean a bingo card?
Dude, there's some live streamers who have a like I mentioned, Donut Operator. He has like his own bingo set. Like,
And yes, that was the exact meme I was thinking, Assassin. He found the meme that I was referring to. I'll quickly pop that up in the proper screen and let you guys see. But,
well, hold on. Okay, so let's hash it out. What kind of game do you want to play? We'll play it on Sunday.
we'll have to think about it. We'll have to brainstorm. But a bingo card system would actually not be too terrible.
like I
There's
said,
the obvious choices, like talking about food.
we do have the full-blown Minions drinking game that Harry published a while ago.
Ooh, I'm not familiar with that one.
I'll have to pull up all the rules for it because it's a good number of rules telling whether it's a drink, a shot, or down the entire thing. So yeah, this was the one that I was thinking of. A small kestrel tries to steal dinner from a Harris hawk. The risk I took was calculated, but man, am I bad at math. Hey, I've been pretty good about noticing when you say shit. I just don't always comment on it. Like, I didn't comment on your Guy Wharf. Because Guy Wharf just sounds strange. I'll stick with Giant Dwarf.
Damn it. I've been. I hate to say it. I guess this is the double-edged sword hitting me, but I've been scrolling through my Twitter, and it's been nothing but video game,
Baby cannibalism.
video game stuff, history, art, and cat stuff for some reason. And I've been trying to find like positive news, but it's all just look at this nice artwork, look at this picture, look at this nice little kitty, and then fucking nothing. I don't know. Is there something uplifting we could end it on? There's got to be something uplifting we can end it on.
We're all alive.
I could talk about what I'm eating for dinner.
Well, you haven't actually.
Yeah, I haven't as of yet. I mentioned it before stream, not on stream. So, for dinner tonight... Okay.
Oh, no.
I just
Wait,
realized...
no, hold on, never mind. We walked right into it.
I'm having
man.
Bengalita pork. Which, that just goes back to what I was talking about a few moments ago hilariously well. I'm having Bengalita pork that I'm going to be searing up in cast iron and serving with a bowl of penne that I've tossed in a garlic scapes pesto. Going to grate a bit of cheese over both. Serve it up with a glass of raspberry wine and call it a night. It'll be delicious. So yeah, it's pork chops rather than suckling pig, but
I mean,
It's
I
hard to
guess
go
the
wrong with
one.
pork. And pork is still affordable in this economic environment.
Oh, that's
So.
true. And I will also say another good thing was no onions was added. So at least
not
that I
this go.
had.
Yeah.
Oh.
Not
Well,
this go.
I made sukiyaki earlier today.
Oh yeah, how did that
Nice.
turn out?
It did. It turned out well, despite the fact that I messed up and got diced water chestnuts by accident.
Could you use them or?
I still used them, but
They impart the flavor, just not the texture.
yeah, I done goofed.
Wait, so they add a different texture or
No,
taste?
I mean,
Yeah.
there's
So-
still texture, but like,
They give the right taste, but they don't give the right sort of texture. They still give texture. It's just rather than having the nice slices where it's these slightly crisp, little crunchy circles, you instead have dice, so it's small little bits throughout rather than just these nice
Mhm.
little rounds of crunchiness.
I guess it's one of those things that you gotta, give a little taste for.
Yep. And as
Be
long as
sure.
it's not extremely fine, because I could see extremely fine diced being somewhat off-putting in the texture. But if it's just standard dice, then it's just a different texture rather than any big change or big problem.
yeah, I didn't extra dice the diced, so
Okay.
it could have been worse.
Yeah, because if you do a fine dice in that, I just see it having an almost gritty texture.
Yeah,
True grit.
I don't want to do that to my sukiyaki. No.
Much better off with the slice or the dice. Nickelback is not worth a wooden penny. Nice. So, with the transition to food, was that sufficiently in good cheer?
It was on a better note than what we would have left it off on
Yeah,
5
I
minutes
mean-
ago.
I mean,
We're at a better place.
it's we're not still in the middle of the battlefield, but we're in a triage with some bandages, not full bandages, not even a stint or anything, but with a bewildered look and uh, because I'm still sitting there like, oh no, but if you chop them up in a finder, it's not as gritty. Oh no, what were we talking? Oh, dun, 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 and then all of a sudden everything starts kicking back, and what are we talking? Okay, you know what? We got to get back to a happier place. I don't think there is a happier place that we can get to. That's sad.
The thing is that with what you were saying, I thought of like 12 fucked up things to come.
I know. It's like, I don't know. Okay. Look, I was watching a bunch of World War One videos earlier today, so I'm sitting there. My mind is in the trench. So yeah, that's probably adding
And
a
yet,
flavor.
our hat does owe us an apology for Nickelback and especially Justin Bieber.
Well, you should,
Thankfully-
because Nickelback
Justin
is a
Bieber's
horrible band.
Canadian. I will not apologize for that guy. Girl, whatever.
Thankfully, we haven't had to deal with Castro's Bastard. That's been a unique issue that they've had to deal with.
Does the Beeb still have the affliction on him?
Which affliction?
The
You'll have to narrow it down. It's Bieber.
the okay, so not Bieber fever. Bieber fever. I think that's what he gives people, but no, didn't he have like a stroke or something like that on his face?
Oh, did he go strokey? I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, Bieber and his wife recently had like some affliction where they, I don't know. Adam, stop using words you don't understand. He had an illness that kind of affected his physiology. And Adam, again, dude, come on. Yeah, I don't know if he still has it, but it was a big thing for a bit, and then it died out, or at least big thing in terms of they were reporting on it.
And to comment on something that Assassin of the Grey said, yes, he would absolutely be a cream puff in prison.
No,
Oh my
he has
God.
tattoos. He's solid.
He'd be a
No.
cream puff.
Why did you have to put that mental image into my brain? A cream puff. Why?
Because it was the most accurate term for the things that would be done.
Why?
Look, Gabby, we're trying to
They don't
replace
even need
one
a piping
traumatized
bag.
image to another traumatized image.
This is Mindy's at the zoo. Not torture is how you make friends. Why
Yeah,
would
this
you
is
do
bad.
that? Why would you do that to me? That's a whole other separate category, which I will prepare for, but I need a couple of beverages before I do.
Next time Gabby eats a profiterole, she's going to be just having flashbacks.
I'll be thinking of cream puffs.
Yep,
Curse you.
exactly.
Hey, wait, is Nickelback the one with the guy who's like, look at this picture or something like that? Look
Yeah.
at this
Look at this
Mhm.
photograph.
Look at it. Every time. Yeah. Yep.
See, every time I think Nickelback, I just think one of my friends from ages ago who every time that he heard Nickelback, he would just, look at this photograph. We write really bad music, but you listen to it anyway.
Well, I mean, they are rich and famous, so to a certain degree, you can't knock them. To
And
a certain degree.
as time went on, he would just go even more ridiculous. So it went from him just saying, look at this photograph, which is actually a long line of the song. He would end up saying, like, look at this pink giraffe. Every time I see it, makes me laugh. But it would always end with, we write really bad music, but you listen to it anyway.
Well, they pay people to write the lyrics.
Oh, some of them, yeah.
Okay,
I will say,
so apparently the facial paralysis was a side effect of
oh,
something that we can't probably say.
yeah, I don't know if they said that it was from the vaccination. He did have a vaccination, but whether or not the illnesses or the symptoms that he's experiencing is from it is they haven't confirmed it. It's just one of those. It just kind of happened. It was weird that it was him and his wife at the same time, and it's just like a weird fucking thing. But in
That
terms,
has to count as happier notes, right? I mean, Justin Bieber facial paralysis. That's
well,
happy, right?
I mean, no, because it. I don't. Okay, this is malicious, Adam. Uh, only because I'm for some reason the left side of my brain is merging it with the right side, which is the Monsters theme or the trailer that just came out for the Monsters. And I'm sitting there like I'm thinking, oh shit, Justin Bieber has a thing, and all of a sudden I'm hearing that Monsters. That's bad. That's a bad thing. No, Justin Bieber is not going to be Herman Munster in the new movie. That is bad. Hey, you know what? That's good.
It's fantastically bad, though.
That was bad. And you know what? I'll take it because it's a lot better than what we were fucking. I'll take it.
Who wants to go for their parting words before I throw out something that will make us just go right back into the depths?
Oh no.
Before you drag all that.
Well, hold
I
on.
guess I'll go for- no.
I'm kind of curious. What?
I just want to say later, taters. I love your faces. And before whatever nonsense they all drag you back into, thank you for joining us. It's always been a pleasure. And catch you next time.
Copy that. Adam, you want to go next?
Well, you know, I always appreciate you letting me join you on Fridays, sir. And Gabby, always fun chatting with you. And for the chat in the panel, you know, as I always say, I love y'all and God bless.
Copy that. And I'll leave off with my standard of if you're passionate about something, make sure that you devour it. Don't let it devour you. And with that, have a good night, all. The zoo is closed.
Night.
Night.
There we go. And now to wait